Christian world and like the morning or Christmas in the morning or Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate in the morning. So I'm just trying to stay cool because of frost. I love the summer. I'm so excited. I know you guys are excited to get exams, but I'm so excited that we're almost there anyway. I'm really excited about Michigan State. I had all my eggs in a basket. I did not bet money on the game, but I'm like, AD2. So I'm like, okay, what happened? Beach is like, it's permanent because AD2. But pretty much different people in the final two, which is nice to shake it up. Because I'm so sick of college football. I'm seeing Alabama. Always, but a lot of times. Did you all have a great weekend? Okay, it's supposed to be kind of similar, but you just know it's almost done. And for those of you that don't have summer placements, I'm sort of amazed at this happens every year, seeing students, seeing students that are in their third year, and they don't have a job, and they're like, oh, cool, I was in my campus, it was like April. And one of them just got down last year. He's like, yeah, first of all, I met this guy, I sent this random resume to this mid-sized firm, and they interviewed me and offered me the job on the spot. And that just really surprised me. So I say that to say, remember the fellowships they have available, whatever they call it, oral, being a initial conference. And if you can find a good opportunity, I always feel like if a door of opportunity doesn't present itself, and I was like the queen of going to places that weren't hiring and sucking up with whoever the partner was, writing the email about their last case that I looked up on Westlaw. And, I just thought they were an amazing attorney, and their arguments were they're just so strong, and I would be honored for the opportunity to learn from them. I just need a placement, so I can get that funding and have some summer legal experience. So I'm saying, if you don't have a placement, build a door. You'll be surprised people that are willing to be a guide for you through the summer in terms of legal skills and concepts that you can learn. All right, so we have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to get moving. We are going to have a lot of attorney today, because there's a lot of information. So I'm probably putting it up midway together, like split it into chapters, 3 and 2. I have 2 and 2. So for the first 2, we have attorney. So yes, all right. So we've got, and have I called on you as well? Yes, why don't you do that? I just want to know. Yeah, I haven't called on you. Yeah, I know I have. Even if I haven't, I guess. That's a joke, everybody. Oh, wow. Should I hear plus? No, I haven't. Okay, cool. All right, so last class, we discussed Rule 15C and the concept of relation back. So I just want to quickly recap that, kind of refresh your memory. Remember with respect to the relation back principle. Oh, and another thing, I was doing it upstairs and I got distracted. The PowerPoint slides after class. I might give you a version right through it, but Rule 15 stuff. So the relation back principle for Rule 15C1. Basically, Section C1A relates to a new claim. This is a reminder. If the applicable statute of limitations allows relation back between the old pleading and the proposed amended pleading, then the amended pleading will be allowed. Again, whatever the statute is that you're trying to bring your claim under, whether it's a tort statute or some kind of statute related to landowner use, it'll say in the statute whether or not you're allowed to use this relation back principle. And in terms of relation back principle for 15C1B, it provides that relation back is permitted if the pleading arose out of the same kind of transaction or occurrence as the original pleading. And then lastly, 15C1C, since they have ABC subparts. C is if you want to add a new party or change a party's name. It addresses a more difficult situation and applies again when the plaintiff seeks to add a party and the plaintiff wants the amendment to relate back to the original complaint. For that last section, 15C1C, you basically need 3 things. 1, again, the claim has to arise out of the same conduct or transaction as the original complaint. 2, it has to occur within 120 days, and that's based on Rule 4M. Rule 4 meaning that serves the process rule. After filing the original complaint, the new defendant has received such notice of a suit that she will not be prejudiced and again prepared how to defend themselves. So this means you basically just need a copy of the original complaint on the new defendant within 120 days of filing the original complaint. And again, all this is in the PowerPoint slide that I was sending you, which is why I'm not slowing down my handwriting for the section. And then third, what you need under 15C1C, if you want to add a new party or change the party's name, it has to be within the same period, meaning that 120 day period that the defendant knew or should have known. I gave example of my brother knowing that lawsuit was check out with his car, even though it had my dad's name on it. Should have been brought against it, but for mistake concerning, again, the proper party's identity. So again, all that's in the PowerPoint I was saying, but just a quick reminder about that relation back principle. Okay, so attorney Park, can you please give me the facts for the Barnard case?
Richard Barnard was a prison facility of the and he simply found himself alleging that the best court was money and it was simply basically it was a money court and he slipped and fell and he's claiming that it's the Richard Foundation's fault because it did not achieve it. The issue that we are interested in, however, is Barnard had wanted to change attorneys during the trial to get there seems to be the new attorney claims that there was a malpractice and that they need to add that to the claim.
All right, so after that, which you did a great job with, thank you. We know that they're seeking damages, right, for these plaintiff injuries. Allegedly sustained when he slipped while playing basketball at his rehab center is a required or mandatory activity for him to participate in that. The defendant is a not-for-profit corporation, so they're licensed in doing business as a drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility in Pennsylvania. We know the plaintiff is a resident of New York. Okay, so with respect to what the plaintiff alleged in the original complaint, you were just telling us, Attorney Park, was what was the original complaint? Yes. So the original complaint was filed in October. The plaintiff said he was injured, again, because the basketball court was negligently maintained, meaning they didn't keep it clean so that he would fall, and that's why he was injured. So basically, the plaintiff was injured again while participating in this primary exercise program on a basketball court at the Same Drug and Rehabilitation Center, and the plaintiff in his original complaint, again, is alleging negligence maintenance of the court. But what happens after the original complaint is filed? What does the plaintiff do? Okay. Excellent. So according to the plaintiff's counsel, investigation and discussions undertaken after his substitution as counsel indicate that a malpractice claim was warranted under the circumstances. And so, what section of Rule 15 is applicable here? No. You want to change your party or name? We'll see. Okay, take your time. What should that tell you?
It wants to escape the flags to the right from which one. It had to do something with them.
I'm here 15C.
I'm sorry.
So you're prepared. So you try to remember. So you get 15C. Yeah, that's fine. 15C. All right, awesome. So, what section of 15C is at liberty here is going to be 15C1B. So Rule 15C1B applies again when a party is trying to add a new claim. Sorry, not parties. I said party, I apologize. 15C1B applies when a party is trying to add a new claim. It provides that relation back to permitted again if the claim arose out of the same conduct, transaction, or occurrence as the original complaint. So the plaintiff's new attorney basically wants to add a new claim. So we're again dealing with 15C1B as in void. What other section of 15 is at issue here? It's going to be 15A2, A as in apple. It's mentioned by the court because the party has to get the court's approval, right, in order to get this relation back under 15C1B because they've passed the time frame for amendment as a matter of right. Remember, if you do it after that 21-day time frame, you need either permission from the other party or permission from the court. So they have exceeded that. And so, if you represent the defendant, what's your argument or rather objection, Jessica, regarding why the plaintiff should not be allowed to amend the complaint? Sorry, Emily Hart.
The defendant's issue is that it doesn't relate back. They're kind of saying that they're trying to claim that.
What other arguments do you have about the negligence claim? Yes, keep going. Doing great. Why are they saying that the malpractice claim does not relate back? Your co-counsel helped out. Where's Shoemaker? Over here to my right. Yeah. What are they saying?
Essentially, that your limitation.
Keep going.
Well, just as the amount of times that counsel malpractice claim does not relate back to
Excellent. All right. So, if you are representing the defendant, you want to make the argument again of why the plaintiff should not be allowed to amend the complaint. Under Rule 15C1B, you can say that the counsel malpractice claim, as the Shoemaker was referencing, does not relate back to the original complaint. Which is about negligent maintenance of the basketball court, right? Those are two totally different, as she was referencing theories, legal theories, right? And therefore it should be barred by Pennsylvania's 2-year statute of limitations. In terms of the 15A2 argument that you can make, you can contend that it would be unduly prejudiced, right? By the amendment, because it would have to return essentially to the drawing board and prepare an entirely different defense. You're thinking you're preparing a defense for negligence, now you're being told you're also preparing a defense for malpractice as well. So why would the defendant make an argument about prejudice in this case? And basically, if you remember the standard from the Opposite case, remember they said no bad faith, no undue prejudice, undue delay, bad motive, or repeat failure to cure deficiencies, and the court should allow the party to amend the pleading. And so the district court has to decide essentially with respect to this malpractice claim whether that relates back to the original pleading, and again considering that the original complaint was about negligence. Attorney Shoemaker, how does the court address the defendant's argument regarding prejudice? What do they say? Is there any prejudice?
It says the previous discovery had not yet expired.
Yes, keep going. You're doing great.
And depositions of the defendant's personnel have been taken, and expert witnesses have not been.
Excellent. In addition to what Attorney Shoemaker said, the court said the parties have consented to trial and have simplified in further supervision of discovery and the conduct and review of pretrial matters. And so the court essentially grants the plaintiff's motion in this case to amend the complaint. They're saying, look, there's really not, we don't see any prejudice here, and any reason, essentially not to allow this to happen. So the original complaint, although the court says about negligent maintenance of the basketball court, that the new claim of counseling malpractice does, based on the court's interpretation, relate back to the old claim of negligent maintenance of the court. In this case, they said the plaintiff alleged several instances of the defendant's negligent conduct, such as failure to maintain the premises safely, failure to warn, failure to inspect the basketball court, failure to supervise against the activities that were occurring on this basketball court. So the court felt like based on these things that they do arise out of the same conduct and transaction from that original complaint. I don't know, I think you can kind of make two arguments here. I think you can read it how you want to in a sense. I get what the court's saying is a lot of the other claims that they were making had inferences of negligence, but when I look at them just at face value, a negligent maintenance of a basketball court, and now you're saying a malpractice claim, can you see how the court, I think in this case, we kind of argue both ways, or go both ways, and have a very sound legal ground you can stand on. So what's important is that you know how the rule is, and that you're amazing attorneys when you get out there and you argue to the best of your ability what side you're on. But I think this is one of those cases where I think it can go either way. Who disagrees? Who thinks the court was point on and was a good decision? You do it, Attorney Shoemaker? No? Sorry. Be honest. You do? Really? I think there's someone. They're inferring that you can, yes. Which I think that, that's always a possibility that someone's going to not, we saw with the, in this case, Commission would tell that they're going to, behave badly and not represent you well. I wouldn't hone in too much on that statement. It's not something that comes with that often, to be honest, in malpractice. Did you all see in the local, just reminding something local news, the attorney that was cashing his client's checks. So he was negotiating with 6 settlements because they're getting ready to disbar him. It doesn't happen often in the state of Texas. He's a sole practitioner, and he was negotiating personal injury checks and then cashing them, and then telling the clients, oh, I was only able to get you 10,000 when he really got 60,000. And he went so far as he was, not only he saw his client's name, one of the clients, he signed her husband's name because they were both in a car accident. So he's like forging clients' names and taking clients' names, forging them, like signing, like what attorney does that? And he did it, and he said it was like thousands and thousands of dollars, like in the 6 digits of settlements that he's been collecting. So yeah, that would be great. She filed a malpractice claim against him in addition to some other things, but you should Google it later. It's kind of fascinating. So we know that the court, again, in the reasoning, said that the allegations in the original and the complaint again derived from the same, they used the terminology nucleus of operative fact. That just means the same conduct and transaction suffered by the plaintiff. They did say, however, that the original complaint, their opinion, as she stated, advised the defendant of the same transaction and occurrence, giving rise to again different theories of negligence. And I'll get your question in a second, including the counseling malpractice. So they felt like again it gave the defendant adequate notice that various theories of negligence might be pursued in this particular case. In addition, the court said that these allegations not only gave the defendant sufficient notice of general facts surrounding the occurrence, but also alerted the defendant to the possibility of a claim based on negligent performance of those professional duties. Finally, the court said that this is a bad faith or early yeah, they're saying in terms of like if you are in a rehab facility and you are in charge of a patient's prescribed treatment plan, like a counselor, that's what they mean. So not like an attorney. She reminded me of an attorney example of malpractice, but in this context, in this case, it's just that counselor treatment plan. So you're making a mandatory to play on the basketball court, and then you're not making sure it's safe.
Right. That makes more sense now that the defendant would have known that could be that comes out of the professional
activities.
So that's what I thought they put the counseling. I thought counselor attorney. And then I said they didn't train on with.
Just as a point of clarity, the original negligence claim was for the maintenance of the basketball court, and then they're saying not only that how you maintain the court, but how you were supervised, whatever treatment plan you were counseling me that's supposed to get me to wholeness, as we say again. Any questions about Bono? All right. So we are finally on the pleading stage. So what do we know thus far? We know that the violent case in civil court, we know that we're going to have an original, first we're going to determine there's personal jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, what the proper venue is, and then we're going to put all that information in the complaint. We're going to use Rule 4 service of process to take that complaint pleading and file it in civil court, and we know that we can make amendments to that pleading when we're adding a new claim or a new party as long as we have 5 of the dispute. And now our pleading, we got past the pleading stage, the judge is like, cool, the court's like, we have your pleading, now it's time to enter the discovery stage. So now the parties are set, the claims are set, and now we're going to exchange information or evidence that we plan on using it for or case. So again, once the pleading stage is over, we turn to discovery. Discovery is going to consist of the parties in a lawsuit, force other parties or witnesses to provide information that's relevant to the case. Again, all I mean by the discovery process, it's a process by which a party in a lawsuit forces other parties or witnesses to provide information that's relevant to the case. So we are going to discuss a number of discovery topics over the next week or so. We're going to talk about the tools that you have. I like to call it an discovery box, so what kind of information you get required from the other parties, and the different methods that lawyers use and rules to get that information. We'll spend some time talking about the scope of discovery, so that you understand there are limitations. There are some privacy limitations, some medical records, and some limitations. You can't just kind of have access to any and everything. So we'll discuss what types of materials and documents are discoverable, and then finally, once discovery is kind of worked out between the parties, we'll talk about how the judge handles disputes. When one party is saying I have a right to have access to this information, the other party is saying no, you don't. So what the judge's options are in those circumstances. So before we kind of jump in to this discovery process, I want to talk a little bit just about the history of discovery and why we even have it, because I think it helps us understand kind of how it operates now and why it's somewhat controversial, the discovery stage of litigation. So in common law, at common law, there was very little discovery. There was some upside to this, the main one being that litigation was a lot cheaper. Discovery is so super expensive. I have friends while studying for the bar, or if they have to take the bar again from law school, that they would work at these big firms just doing discovery, and all they would do is go through like documents. So you'll say I want all the email, all the incident reports from 2016 to 19. And the company will say, fine, you have access to our records room. You walk in the room, there's just boxes and boxes of files, and you're looking for that red herring. So you have to hire people that can look at, if you don't want to miss that one thing that's going to change your case, the outcome, and look through all those documents. That's called document review. My wife's girlfriend passed the bar. Unfortunately, I don't know why she could never find a job. She worked in Virginia, Fairfax, Virginia. She did document review for 2 years. They called her a staff attorney after law school. She made a lot of money. So they were paying her, which blew my mind, $85 an hour. And then if she would work past the 40, she would get double time. So she was bored out of her mind just going through documents all day. And it's kind of isolating. And she's just sitting in a room basically looking through documents. But it can be very expensive. And before we had the discovery process, meaning when we were in the common law era, it was quicker process. Discovery can take weeks, months, and months of going back and forth, exchanging information, going on site to look at if it's a God forbid a plane crash like we saw in the Piper case, going out to that location, having your experts go out there, finding experts to go out there. Just, it's a lot more expensive. And during common law, there were surprises at trial because each party didn't know what the other party was bringing to the table, what evidence they were bringing until they got to trial. And they'd be like, all right, Mr. Johnson, what do you have to say about this contract you said you never signed? So people didn't have time to be honest, to lie, to rehearse their response, to practice, how they were going to frame their answers to certain inquiries from the other parties. And so a lot of people who criticized the discovery process said, look, people have more time to manipulate the system, to come up with, their little crafty responses for things, explanations. But there's also some downsides. One, people were less prepared, and again, you had a lot of these surprise moments, aha moments. So basically, society as a whole decided that kind of these gotcha moments in trial, surprise moments weren't good, and they said, we want this broad discovery process that really supports the spirit and purpose of the rules from the beginning, which is transparency. The notion that you can ferret out the truth. We want transparency. We want all the facts on the table so that the fact finder can make hopefully the most accurate judgment as possible. So the scope of modern discovery is exceptionally broad. It reduces, again, after that gamemanship and surprise. Again, its primary disadvantage is being that it's really expensive. It also allows for harassment, so it can, in some instances, chill litigation. The threat is usually justified as a means of enhancing your ability to discover the truth. But you can probably see how, again, it has positives and negatives, but again, as a whole, the legal community don't like the positive outweigh the negatives. So I've included on the slide an outline of the order in which we're going to discuss the different discovery topics, and then we'll discuss relevance and proportionality. And I think that's it. Yes. So we'll basically, when we discuss relevance and proportionality, we'll talk about the Grable case, proportionality and privacy and protective orders. We'll talk about the Price case and the Ring Depot case. After that, we'll turn to again the mandatory or required disclosures, and then we'll talk about those discovery tools, meaning what methods you can use to require information, such as interrogatory or deposition. And then we'll conclude with a discussion about consulting experts and images. So on page 466 of your text, page 466, it provides a great outline of the different stages of the discovery process. I love that part. Very shortly after the complaint is filed, the parties will need to prepare for a set of discovery conferences. As the chart indicates, Federal Rule 16 and 26F is in rank govern these conferences. These two rules set forth the timing of the conferences in a fairly confusing way. Oftentimes, local rules may help shed light on the exact sequence of the conferences, meaning which comes first. But as the chart indicates, Rule 26F is in rank occurs before Rule 16 conference, or the scheduling order is issued. And I'll explain what I mean by scheduling order in just a second. So when must the Rule 26F conference be held? It has to be held by the parties as soon as practically possible, right? And at least 21 days before the Rule 16 conference. So it's very important you hold that Rule 26F conference with the parties as soon as possible. The latest you can hold it is 21 days before the Rule 16 scheduling order. The reason this is important is because at this Rule 26F conference, the parties will talk about different subjects of discovery that they plan on asking for, different items, anticipated disputes. Look, we're going to ask, we're telling you up front, we're going to ask for your client's mental health records, right? Because we think it's relevant to our claim. And about the parties can also discuss settlement. A lot of times when the other party kind of starts hearing what the defense's strategy is, litigation strategy, they'll actually settle the case during that Rule 26F conference and not even need to go to court. So they might be able to resolve the case at this very, very early stage. And so after the Rule 26F conference, there are two things, okay, that happen after that 26F conference. And again, it's detailed in the chart. First, as the chart notes, after the Rule 26F conference, the parties will generally make what is known as their initial required disclosures. They'll make their initial required disclosures, which are typically, we'll discuss what those are. Rule 26A, as in Apple, provides that the initial disclosures must be made no later than 14 days after the Rule 26F conference. Okay? The disclosures can also be made after the 26F conference. The second thing that happens after the Rule 26F conference is that no later than 14 days after that conference, the parties must agree on a proposed discovery plan of litigation. Very important, okay? You have to agree on this discovery plan for litigation and submit to the court a written report outlining that discovery plan. So essentially, they're saying, look, we've had this 26F conference. These are the pieces of evidence that we're going to ask for, and we've agreed we're going to ask for this information. This is the timeline we're going to be done with the discovery process. Say we have our 26F conference yesterday. We've written that conference that we want to be done with the discovery process by August 2019, August 31st. So it's a timeline to try to keep things in motion so it doesn't drag on forever, this discovery plan. And the court relies on this plan when they're doing the scheduling order. So it's after the Rule 26F conference that the judge issues again the scheduling order referenced in Rule 16B and also depicted on the chart that I referenced you to. So the order is issued either after the court receives the parties' discovery plan or after the court holds a scheduling conference with the parties. So Rule 16B generally just requires again the court to issue the scheduling order. And it basically just maps out the progress of the litigation from that until trial. So here's our timeline from discovery until trial. And again, and here's your trial date. So it's just literally what it sounds like. It's a scheduling order, that lists what the schedule is to try this particular case. There's a lot of, after the scheduling order is issued, the parties can then begin using those discovery tools. We'll discuss in just a little bit. I give examples such as depositions, interrogatories are examples of discovery tools. Historically, parties could not use these tools until the Rule 26F conference occurred, but there were some amendments, which rarely happens in 2015, to Rule 26. Document request, and basically the amendments that they made to Rule 26 in 2015 said that, which we'll discuss later, that you can request some of these items prior to the scheduling conference, and I'll talk about what that is in a little bit. So basically, after the judge issues the scheduling order, as you can see on the chart, there will be a final pretrial conference and final trial order, pretrial order. So basically, under Rule 16, the court's not required to, but they may hold a final pretrial conference, which must be held as close to the start of the trial as reasonable. At this conference, the parties will discuss again in considerable detail the plans for the trial. Then the court will enter a final pretrial order under Rule 16, again, which maps out the trial process for the rest of the litigation. So if it's a really kind of back and forth discovery process where there's a lot of disputes, the court is having to decide. They will do this final pretrial conference and say, look, I want the trial to go smoothly. This is how it's going to work. So that is essentially the process. And so that's the process for getting to the court. Logistics, but when you're doing discovery, it's important to understand the scope of discovery. What can you ask for? What can you not ask for? So Rule 26B1 gives us the rules regarding the scope and limits of discovery. So, and what types of materials are discoverable. So as the slide depicts, unless otherwise limited by a court order, the scope of discovery is that parties may obtain discovery regarding any non-privileged matter that is relevant to any party's claim or defense and proportional to the needs of the case. So I want to emphasize that, and proportional to the needs of the case. 26B1 suggests that what's relevant and proportional to the needs of the case will depend on the importance of the issue at stake. Okay, depends on the importance of the issue at stake in the action. The amount of the controversy. You know, we're talking $10,000 or we're talking $1.5 million. The party's relative access to relevant information. Look at the party's resources. Okay, the importance of discovery in resolving the issue. How important is this piece of evidence in answering whatever legal question is before the court? And whether or not the burden or expense of the proposed discovery outweighs the likely benefit. So a lot of times you'll see in the cases you're asking for obnoxious things that is really not relevant. They're basically just trying to harass the other party, make you spend a bunch of money to go find something that's not relevant to their legal question in the case. You know, all your claims are, you know, they're like, you know, that's an overly broad request. You're being a jerk. You're trying to run up the litigation costs on the other side. So it's very important. The court plays a very important role with Rule 26B interpretation, making sure that again it's proportional to the needs of the case and people aren't being unduly harassed with obnoxious, overly broad discovery requests. And so, in terms, 2631 also, in terms of telling us the scope of discovery, again, just telling us what materials are discoverable, and what parties can seek without having to get the court's approval. So again, non-privileged matters, you don't need the court's approval, and as long as you can establish that what you're asking for is proportional to the needs of the case, you don't have to get the court involved. An important fact about Rule 26 I've always kind of thought was weird, is that it doesn't matter whether the information you're requesting is admissible at trial. What do you think that's weird? I think that's weird. It's not admissible at trial, you can get access to it. But the way it's set up, it doesn't matter whether the information is admissible at trial, so the information doesn't need to be admissible evidence in order for it to be discoverable. That was part of the 2015 amendments to Rule 26 before 2015. Any discoverable information had to be reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence. But they changed it. Instead, it doesn't have to be reasonably calculated to lead to, like, it's more than likely this is going to be admissible. They said it doesn't matter anymore. They just changed this 4 years ago, Rule 26, and the idea behind the change is like, we just want it to be as broad as possible. If it's not admissible before, it won't get before the jury, so no prejudice. But we want as much information gathering as possible so we can make sure all evidence that is admissible, has the opportunity to be reviewed and considered before the court. So if it's not admissible, it won't get to the jury. But we don't want to stifle the discovery process by saying it has to be reasonably calculated. But then it allows the judge or someone to nick it before it even gets a chance. So they want to make it as broad as possible. Let's go ahead and talk about the Finale case. I don't know how to pronounce it. So you have, where are we? We have Attorney Shoemaker. You've already got it for you. We've got Shoemaker and have Attorney Webb already gone? Yay. So Shoemaker, Webb. All right, let's do this Finale case. Either of you can give me the facts. That'd be great.
I think worked with
Excellent. All right. So the nature of the plaintiff's claim in this suit, I did Google Sister Zaversky, just to see if she was still there. I was wondering, but she comes up in Google. It's kind of interesting stories. I'll leave it at that. So with respect to the nature of the plaintiff's claim, in the second paragraph of the case, they list what the nature of the claim was, which is sexual harassment, retaliation, defamation, intentional and negligent infliction, emotional distress, negligent hiring, and negligent supervision, among others. So what information, Attorney Webb, did the plaintiff want to compel? Meaning, what's the discovery problem? Excellent. So they wanted information and records such as state of mind for anger management, history, psychological and psychiatric conditions, as well as second, they want you to tell her to testify, right, about the prior treatment she received for this anger management. So if you're plaintiff counsel, why would you want this information? Well, if you consider an excerpt on your case from the Connecticut law of negligence, the block quote says, quote, to assert a negligent hiring claim under Connecticut law, a plaintiff must plead and prove that she was injured by the defendant's own negligence in failing to select as its employee a person who was fit and competent to perform the job in question, and that her injuries resulted from the employee's unfit, incompetent performance of his work. And that's cited from the Roberts versus Circuit Wise case. So the reason, if you're the plaintiff, you want this information is pretty darn obvious. The evidence might support a negligent hiring and supervision claim. Evidence again that the principal at anger management probably showed she wasn't fit for the job, and therefore the employer was negligent when they hired her in the first place. They should have known about these issues had they done their due diligence, right? So why does the court conclude that the information was irrelevant and grant the defendant's motion for protective order? Right. So I did a bad job. I usually learn names. What's your co-counsel's last name to your left? Well, you look like just now. You didn't, like when he was speaking, like how you like me now. You're like this, like he's killing it. Like, are you friends? Sometimes you stick by someone at the beginning, then you only like them, but it is second semester, so you would know better. He's pointing to you and said you're that guy. Wow. You guys missed it, but he was looking like, well, he's like totally prepared. He couldn't see, but he literally was leaning to the side like this, watching the clock. You guys are gonna say, you should see it. I'm not that. So yeah, so we know the court grants the motion for protective order, and first the court finds that the information, as he said, regarding the anger management, in their opinion, is irrelevant, right? Because they said that psychiatric and psychological conditions are not closely related enough, right, to the claims of sexual harassment. Second, the court's decision is guided by the legal requirements of the claims for negligent hiring and supervision. Connecticut law governing these claims again requires that the employer had notice of said employee's propensity for the type of behavior causing the plaintiff's harm. So the court basically suggested it's questionable, right? Whether the employer had knowledge of the principal's anger management issues and psychological problems. The court says even if the employer was aware of Sister Zavarsky's issues, this knowledge doesn't relate to the plaintiff's claim of negligence, supervision, and negligent hiring because notice of the principal's alleged anger management, history, or psychological and psychiatric conditions does not equate to notice of the principal's propensity to commit acts of sexual harassment. They're like, yeah, she might have anger management issues, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's a pervert. Speaking of perverts, so I have an elderly aunt, and she lives in Florida. She's lonely, so she met this guy who needed a place to stay. She let him move in. His name is Willie. We call him affectionately in the family closet Free Willie. And he has some sexual perversion issues, and so she's in denial. The neighbors have reported he put blue tarp around all of her fence. She lives on a corner, a busy street corner, and he put up blue tarp. The neighbors who jog on the street said Willie is in the backyard walking around naked, and he like when we see him, he gets a kick out of us seeing him naked in the backyard. But my aunt says I've never seen him. He would never do that. Blah, blah, blah. So one of the neighbors, there's a park next door to my aunt's house, and so they keep saying he walks around. We're making police reports, and he walks around the park naked, right? And then he kind of like jumps out of darkness. So this one lady, she's determined to catch him, so she's like, I got you. So she's taking pictures. He knocks the camera, phone out of her hand, tosses it in a lake that's water, park, like, goes in the lake. And then he gets back. So he never gets caught. So guess how he got caught? So he got caught. There is a nursing home down the street. Not a retirement home, a nursing home. So people, we're talking, not a good situation here. He was standing in the window in the nursing home looking at people doing pervert acts, right? And he ran away. They caught him. The police have been trying to catch him in the park. They had him on camera, right? So he got caught. Goes to jail. We find out he has like this rap record of pistol whipping, kidnapping. Like he had this criminal record that was like, it was incredible. And I was just like, what were you thinking? She's like, well, I didn't know. He's nice to me. He's just a friend. He plays to stay. Blah blah blah. She's on a walker. You know he got out of jail, and she just let him come back. After seeing the criminal record and knowing that you're like, you're in the backyard and walking on the park naked. That's not okay. So when I see her, I think of the fact that just because she might have anger management issues doesn't necessarily make her perverted. So I agree with the court. I cannot make this stuff up. I almost want to tell you his last name. People want to see his face like that. It's crazy. Somebody on this little, he's like taking advantage of this little old lady who's afraid to stay by herself. She won't go stay with her kids, but it's interesting. So is there anything the plaintiffs could have done had they heard rumors, for instance, of the anger management issues that would maybe increase their chances of being able to get the court to look, we want access to this information? Well, think about how the plaintiff could have reframed her complaint, right? To clarify the causal link, that's where she messed up, between the information about the anger management issues and the claims of negligent supervision and sexual harassment. The plaintiff could have, for example, framed some of the principal's conduct of battery, right? Making physical contact and emphasize the ways in which her behavior, sexual harassment, constituted a physical assault given her anger management issue. So they could have framed it like that. The question is really meant to help you kind of understand the relationship between pleadings and the relevance analysis regarding discovery. So how you plead is important with what you can get in the discovery process at this point. So why is it that Sister Swiderski, the principal, is not named as a defendant? Likely she has limited access. You want to go where the big deep pockets are, right? Another reason is that the jury, angered about the principal's behavior, might place all the liability on her, while the diocese might be off the hook, which again is where the deep pockets are. So the verdict wouldn't reflect the institution as well as alleged complicity in the harm. So what's important about this case is that you really have to take a very expansive view of relevance in everyday life. Discovery is relevant only if it tends to prove or disprove something that the substantive law says matters. So again, what's important to remember about this case is relevance only, meaning this information is only relevant if it tends to prove or disprove something that the substantive law says matters. Again, only relevant if it tends to prove or disprove something the relevant law says matters. The scope of relevant discovery is tied to the factual and legal allegations in the pleading. So think about this how you're pleading. That's why I tell you to plead as broadly as possible. We know there's an exception with Rule 9b. With broad, you have to plead with specificity. There's high pleading rules. But otherwise, you see why you want to be broad, because you want to make sure that you don't limit yourself to what you can get in discovery. And so this case illustrates the limitations of relevance. In stark terms, which is why we have you read it, we know that the court holds that the principal's testimony pertaining to the treatment she allegedly received for her anger management, psychological, and psychiatric conditions is not relevant, again, because it does not pertain to the defense or claim of the party. So what claims or defense you put in that pleading create a framework for what you can ask for in discovery. Okay? Create a framework. And Elizabeth for people to red herring. All right, so let's talk about proportionality and privacy. Okay, proportionality and privacy. We talked about the boundaries of relevance, but also understand it from this perspective as well. So Rule 26b2c, which I have one up there, allows courts to limit even relevant discovery. Okay, to limit even relevant discovery for multiple reasons, and allow courts a lot of discretion to do so. The discovery rules authorize courts to limit discovery. One, it is unreasonably cumulative, or can be obtained from some other source that is more convenient, less burdensome, or less expensive. Second, the party seeking discovery has made ample opportunity to obtain information by discovery. Or 4, is outside the scope of Rule 26b. Or 5, not proportional to the case. Again, I will email you this PowerPoint, so for those of you that don't get it all down, I've got to keep moving forward. It's also important to remember that a party need not provide discovery of electronically stored information from sources that the party identifies as not reasonably accessible because of undue burden or cost. And that's Rule 26b. All right. Move forward. So, 26c. Is an additional limit on discovery, right? 26c is an additional limit on discovery. 26c1 permits a judge to enter a protective order to shield a party or non-party from annoyance, embarrassment, oppression, or undue burden or expense. So you're asking for information regarding my medical history because you know that I have HIV, and the case is about negligence. You're just trying to use the discovery process to harass me. And so I'm going to ask the judge to a protective order and say, they don't give this information. They are just trying to embarrass me, harass me, to annoy me. Okay? So the rule permits the party seeking protection to make a motion for a protective order. The party seeking a protective order must certify that he or she has endeavored in good faith to confer with the other parties to resolve the dispute without the court's involvement. So they have to say, look, I tried to talk to the other party. They're being buttholes. They're being unreasonable. Your Honor, I did make the effort. We don't want to keep running to you for every little thing, but I need your intervention at this point. I want to emphasize that 26c1 goes on to tell you the different things that a judge may do with the protective order. The list is not exhaustive. I just included some caveats that a judge may forbid disclosure of. Again, if you have time to look at this on your own, make sure you do so. So let's go ahead and discuss the Price case. The Price case. Attorney Shoemaker, what is the facts? Thank you. You did a great job. Just tell me the factual allegations, actually. What kind of claim?
Do you think that cause of action related to the denial of medical treatment to the victim?
Yeah, awesome. Okay, very precise. Okay. All right, so this case grew from a claim that was brought by Loretta Price on behalf of her son, Dwayne Sweet, who died, as he said, incarcerated. Okay. What material, Attorney Webb, does the plaintiff want? Yeah. Excellent. Great. If you're counsel for the plaintiff, how do you convince the court that you should get access to that information? What rule? Yes, excellent. All right, so we know that if you're counsel for the plaintiff and you want to convince the court that you, as you said, you should have access to this information, Attorney Webb said you would rely on Rule 26b1, which is correct, and that essentially claiming that she's claiming her son died again because he did not receive proper medical treatment. So the other complaints about failure to provide medical treatment to prisoners would support her argument, right? That this was basically a pattern of negligence, and that's the argument she would try to make, and saying that to help establish this defendant's liability, they have a pattern of negligence. So if you represent the defendant and you want to make an argument for why you shouldn't be required to provide this information, as he stated, you're going to say, hey, Your Honor, this request is overly burdensome because it would require reviewing every single individual inmate's case individually, and so they cited Rule 26b2. And saying it would be overly burdensome. If you recall, we just recapped Rule 26b2, which allows the courts to limit discovery if, remember, it was unreasonably cumulative or duplicative, or can be obtained from some other source that is more convenient, less burdensome, or less expensive. But this case uses the old version of Rule 26b, but we discussed a new version. So in Price is the defendant that is seeking discovery limitation again on Rule 26b2c grounds. So with respect to whether or not the court disagrees that responding to the interrogatory would be burdensome, we haven't covered discovery tools yet. But again, interrogatory is just a set of questions each party submits in writing to the other party. They have to respond in writing within a certain number of days, and then the other party receives the response. They kind of go back and forth. It's kind of getting like background information before you start doing depositions. It's an inexpensive, cheap way to get information, right? So however you respond becomes part of the court record. So again, with respect to whether or not the court disagrees that responding to the interrogatory would be burdensome, we know the court says no. It seems to acknowledge that the defendant, as well as his counsel, would need to review again hundreds of thousands of individual files. Why then does the court compel the defendant to respond? Well, first, it's because it concludes that the only reason responding to the request is burdensome, as Attorney Webb said, is because the defendant's files and retains written complaints in a disorganized fashion. It wouldn't be burdensome if they had a more organized record-keeping system. Second, the court says, more importantly, there's no alternative way, right? It can access the information, and they consider the information to be relevant to the case. So the plaintiff should not be essentially punished, as Attorney Webb said, for the defendant's disorganization. Why does the court limit the response to 7 years instead of the 10 years that are sought? Because the court says the plaintiff request for 10 years, again, too broad, and it's only burdensome. Remember, it needs to be proportional to the needs of the case. And the defendant was only working for the company for 7 years, so why are you requesting them to give you records for 10 years? And so the court finds it burdensome to compel the defendant to get information for a portion that the defendant was not employed at the jail during that time period, being those extra 3 years. So they got 7 years is reasonable. Kind of a crazy case, but I like it. What are your thoughts, Attorney Shoemaker, on the court's ruling here? Do you agree that the request was overly broad and burdensome, asking for the 10 years versus 7?
I mean, I agree with what the court said. It seems, I understand the rationale. The court's not going to bail him out because, I guess they have a fishy record.
Yeah, I shouldn't be punished, right, for not having sufficient record keeping. I don't think I should. So I'm trying to see how long this last case is. We're going to do it. All right. So the Ringifo case. Ringifo case. I'm going to help you get through this. It's got like 15 minutes. Everybody breathe. Oh, we have Ringifo today? Oh, we did. Read that. What is that? What blackboard board are you reading? Yeah, that's how it is. All right, so Ringifo case. Let's go forward. Keep shirtless. All right, so what's the basis of the plaintiff's suit? The plaintiff has sued his former employers to recover unpaid overtime wages, right, under the Fair Labor Standards Act and New York law. We know the defendants have sought discovery related to the immigration status, authorization to work in the United States, and they want their social security number. So what does the plaintiff do in response to the defendant's request for all this personal information? You want my immigration status, you want my social security. They've done a lot of cases today. You're not going to volunteer to help. What is the plaintiff's response? Go ahead. Excellent. So he asked for that protective order via Rule 26C as in cat. So while the defendant in Price, the case we just discussed, was seeking a discovery limitation on Rule 26B grounds, it is the plaintiff in this case who seeks a discovery limitation, but based on 26C. So two different approaches here. So we know the court starts off its discussion by telling us that the burden is on the party seeking, right, the protective order to show good cause. Here, it's the plaintiff that's seeking the order. So if you're counsel for the plaintiff and you're seeking this protective order, you don't want to have to give this information about the immigration status, your social security number, and so on. How do you convince the court to satisfy this burden? What is your argument as to why you should get this protective order, again, preventing the plaintiff from obtaining this information? Well, the most obvious response to that is that you tell the court that the discovery is related to his immigration status. Authorization to work in this country and social security number are not relevant to his right to recover unpaid wages. The information has to be relevant to a claim or defense contained in the pleas. Another thing you can tell the court is, look, they're just trying to intimidate him. That's it. It's an intimidating effect of requiring disclosure again of his immigration status is sufficient to establish good cause. And it's going to basically inhibit the plaintiff from wanting to continue to pursue the claim because of the intimidation factor. That's if you're the plaintiff. But if you represent the defendant, you want this information. And so you need to be able to make an argument to the court of why you should be able to get this immigration status, your social security number, etc. You're going to say, look, Your Honor, the plaintiff's social security number is relevant to the claim for overtime wages because we need this information as a defendant to confirm how many hours he actually worked, right? The plaintiff has produced an incomplete set of pay stubs that don't reflect all of the compensation he's received from corporate defendants. And, Your Honor, the plaintiff has not produced any records regarding the number of hours that they worked on a weekly basis. So as a defendant, I'm going to say the discovery of these documents that I'm asking you to let me get access to, Your Honor, containing, again, his tax identification number, his social security number, so I can use that for tax returns, is relevant to the plaintiff's case. It's also relevant to the plaintiff's truthfulness and credibility, and so keep in mind that generally only non-citizens are authorized to work in the United States. So, Your Honor, this speaks to the plaintiff's character as well. So please let us get this information. So with respect to the court's response, we know the court said, okay, you know what, with respect to whether they're going to grant this protective order, if check the plaintiff or say no, you're going to have to give up that information. The court finds that while some of the information is irrelevant, right, and other information sought would go to the plaintiff's credibility, they agree to that. But the court said regardless of this, they said the relevance is outweighed. So we're acknowledging Rule 26B is applicable here. This information is relevant. They said that the information that is relevant is outweighed by the harms, okay, associated with ordering the information disclosed. The court tells us that the defendant probably has his own records, right, about how many hours, etc. the plaintiff worked, and there's no reason to think that these records were unreliable, okay? The harms that the court is referencing that they're trying to protect the plaintiff against and why they're issuing this Rule 26C protective order is that they said that Rule 26C, citing the statute, the rule says, quote, it allows such orders to protect the party from annoyance, embarrassment, oppression, or undue burden or expense. And they said that disclosure of this information could cause the plaintiff to abandon his claim, and it would discourage others from suing to vindicate their rights. The court is essentially weighing the benefits of the information against the burdens of the information to the plaintiff's privacy and liberty. This is a case where the court is really based on a policy basis. They're saying, is it good for public policy? Do we want to create an environment where people, even if they don't have their proper immigration status, are being exploited by employers and don't feel comfortable pursuing a case to stop this type of exploitative practice? And so they said that for these reasons, the plaintiff's application for a protective order barring defendants from inquiring to their immigration status, their social security number, or tax identification number, and authorization to work for the United States is granted. This case is interesting because, like I said, the court is not obviously applying strict law, a strict legal interpretation. Because if you look at it from that perspective, no, I think that stuff is relevant. If I want to verify that I have, I can run your social security number, do your taxes, see what your wages were, figure out the number of hours. But they're saying again, we don't want to create an environment where people that may not have immigration status are being exploited, and there's no recourse for them. There's no deterrence for employers to engage in this kind of activity. If you're my dad's going to say, if you're here illegally, then you need to provide that information. So he would say it would deter people from that have correct immigration status from working. My dad is, like I've said several times, he's a what do you call it? He's interesting. I don't even want to call him a conservative because I think he's much more than that. I don't know what he is, but I don't know what category he's in, but I know that he would be mad at this court decision. So what's important from this case? Go ahead. It does, and there's this place called the Garment District in Los Angeles, and I see these workers, like you go there and the stores will go there and buy stuff in wholesale, and they're back there working, they're Hispanic workers, and I know that they're paying them like $2 an hour, cash under the table. I know that when my dad got to BASF, which is a big company, when he first got to their regional office in Georgia, he said they had so many people that didn't have green cards that they paid them half a minimum wage to the company knowingly, and no benefits, and he's like, they're doing the same work, so he's like, the very least we can do is pay him the same minimum wage salary that everyone else was getting. He got in a lot of trouble. That's why I said I don't know where he is, because sometimes he flips, I don't know where he stands on stuff, but it is, I get why they made this. It's just an interesting case, but nevertheless, what's important is for you to remember today, Rule 26C is there, a protective order to make sure that people aren't using the discovery process to take advantage, harass, intimidate plaintiffs. And number two, remembering that Rule 26 governs the relevancy and scope of discovery. It needs to be proportional to the needs of the case. You can't ask for more than you need. Overly burdensome requests will not be honored by the court. So it's creating limitations. These rules that we're going to be covering over what you can ask for and what you can't ask for. I will see you all tomorrow.